A Singapore lawyer was not struck off simply because he drove after drinking. The decisive issue was what he did next. He falsely told the police that someone else had been driving. Twice. Stephen John Lam Keng, 56, was removed from Singapore's roll of lawyers on July 9, 2026. This means he can no longer practice as a lawyer unless he successfully applies for reinstatement in the future. The case began in the early hours of April 7, 2024. Lam had been drinking at a friend's home. He admitted consuming about 4 or 5 cans of beer before driving away. While traveling along Bukit Panjang Road, he lost control of his car. The vehicle mounted the curb of the road divider and crashed through 9 sections of central guard railing. Witnesses said Lam tried to leave by flagging down a taxi. They stopped him from leaving the scene. When traffic police questioned him, Lam claimed that an unknown friend had been driving. He repeated that claim later at the traffic police headquarters. His breath test recorded 61 micrograms of alcohol in every 100 milliliters of breath. Singapore's legal limit is 35 micrograms. This was also not his first drink driving offense. He had a previous conviction from 2006. In November 2025, Lam pleaded guilty to drink driving, careless driving, and 2 counts of giving false information to a public servant. He received 8 weeks in jail, an $18,000 fine, and a 6-year driving ban. That completed the criminal case. But for a lawyer, the consequences did not end there. Under Singapore's legal framework, a conviction involving dishonesty can trigger separate professional proceedings. The court of 3 judges heard his disciplinary case. This is the highest body dealing with serious misconduct within Singapore's legal profession. The Law Society argued that striking him off was necessary to protect the public and preserve confidence in lawyers. Lam's lawyer asked the court to consider his remorse and his history of public service. This included volunteer legal clinics. The judges acknowledged those contributions. They also noted that he had apologized for damaging the profession's reputation. However, the court found no reason to depart from the expected penalty for dishonest conduct. Here is the important distinction. Drink driving endangered people on the road. The false statements challenged something else, whether a lawyer could still be trusted to deal honestly with the authorities. Lawyers are regularly asked to handle confidential information, advise clients, and make representations before courts and public agencies. The profession, therefore, depends on more than technical legal knowledge. It depends on personal integrity. That is why good work from the past did not cancel out the later misconduct. Public service may show that a person has contributed positively to society, but it does not erase a deliberate attempt to shift responsibility after an accident. At the same time, the judgment did not suggest that those contributions were meaningless. The judges said Lam's service record could be considered should he seek reinstatement in the future, together with the other requirements that would apply. This creates an important balance. The immediate priority is protecting public confidence. Any future return would require a separate assessment of whether trust had genuinely been rebuilt. Lam had been called to the Singapore bar in 1996. He was also a co-founder and director of Templars Law at the time of the offenses, although he did not hold a practicing certificate when the disciplinary case was reported. He had been appointed a Justice of the Peace in 2023. By December 2025, that appointment was in the process of being revoked. What makes this case different is the gap between status and conduct. A respected position can increase public expectations, but it cannot shield a person from accountability. In fact, the higher the level of trust attached to a role, the more damaging dishonesty can become. The broader lesson applies beyond lawyers. When someone makes a serious mistake, taking responsibility may affect the penalty. Trying to mislead investigators can create a second and sometimes more lasting problem. The criminal sentence punished the driving offenses, and false information. The disciplinary order addressed whether Lamb remained suitable to belong to a profession built around trust. Those are separate questions, serving different purposes. In my view, striking a lawyer off should never be treated lightly. It can end a career built over decades. But when dishonesty is deliberate, repeated, and directed at the police, a strong professional response is understandable. Without that standard, the public may start wondering whether professional status brings special protection instead of greater responsibility. Do you think a person's years of public service should reduce the professional consequences of one serious act of dishonesty? Like, share and subscribe to 2230.